guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for I thought I wasn't recording. And for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today we are doing another palette roulette, and we are reviewing yet another Juvias Place palette. For those of you who are unaware, my palette roulettes are a series that I do here on my channel. We are on number 116, and they are a video in which I use an app to pick a palette that I utilize throughout the week. I come back to you the following week, talk to you about my experiences with the palette, show you some pictures of the eye looks that I created, show you some live swatches, and then we pick another palette. My palette collection is quite extensive, but there are, you know, some set brands that I have quite a few palettes from, and Juvias Place is one of them. Last week we reviewed the Nomad Palette by Juvias Place. We've reviewed quite a few Juvias Place palettes on here, so I'm not going to utilize this palette roulette to really dig into the brand's owner. I have done that in previous palette roulettes that included a Juvias Place palette in the past. So today I am just going to be talking about the palette, and today we do have the Juvias Place Magic. I do have the mini, so this is the Magic Mini palette. This is one of the first palettes that I picked up from Juvias Place. I think the very first one to my collection from Juvias Place was the Masquerade palette. I think that was a lot of people's first palette from Juvias Place. With that said, I no longer have the box that this guy came in, and because of that, they didn't put any of the information on the back of the palette that they currently are putting on the back of the palettes now. So I don't have an outright weight for this palette. I couldn't find it anywhere online, but I do think that these shade sizes are approximately the same size as the ones that are in the Juvias Place Freak or the Coral palette. I did base the weight of each pan in this palette on what the weight of each pan in those palettes consists of, because I really think that they are the same size pan, and I'll show you them side by side so that you see that. This is the Juvias Place Magic Mini. As I said, I do have the mini one. It does come in a larger size. However, I am unable to find that larger size on their website anymore, except for in a bundle, which you can get the Masquerade and the Magic palette. Even then, I think that those are minis now that I'm saying that out loud. So if you know whether they still sell the full size of this or not, please let us know down in the comments section. This palette is $30 on the Juvias Place website, and from everything I can gather, each one of these pans has 0.0525 ounces of product inside of the pans, and there are 16 shades in here. So this is what the palette looks like. It does come in at 5 stars on the Juvias Place website with 415 reviews. It does have a 4.9 star rating on Google with 1960 reviews, and it does have a 4.8 star on Beauty Bay with 133 reviews. It's got a beautiful like coral background to it with the sun and moon shining on, I think this is Nefertiti, right? I don't know, please don't come for me in the comments if that's not true. But a queen nonetheless, with sun and moon shades. It does say the Magic Mini on the spine, and the back is just blank. There is nothing on the back telling you anything about the palette, as is with her newer palettes. When you open it up, it does have that same motif on the inside of the palette. Many of her palettes do that, and they do not put mirrors in the palette, and that's really to conserve on cost for their products. And then this is what the palette looks like. Like I said, I do believe each one of these pans has 0.0525 ounces of product in them, and there are 16 shades in this palette. You can see that there are 2 warm tone rose and 2 cool tone rose, which I think is amazing, and they are inspired by the sun and the moon. So you've got your sun shades and your moon shades. That is supposed to help you perfect your looks for day and night. Like I said, used to be sold in 2 sizes. I'm not sure that it is anymore. I can't find the full size version anymore, but the full size version of this palette did have pans that were roughly this same size. So 16 of these bad boys all in one palette. So you can see definitely the size difference here. I loved this size pan because this size pan was really meant for you to utilize this palette for all over your face, right? For blushes and contours and bronzers and the like. This is one of the newer size pans to her collection. This is the Nomad palette that we just reviewed. They are a smidge bit smaller than the full size, but also a smidge bit bigger than these guys. So you guys can see the sizing difference there. And these pans did have 0.36 ounces per pan. And then this is the Freak palette, and these are the size of these pans, and I think that these are roughly the same size. I don't know, now that I'm looking at it, I think they might be just a smidge bit smaller, maybe because of the color differences. Like looking at them like this, they look like the same size pans. So you guys let me know if you know. I do have an older Magic Mini, so it doesn't have any of the information about the palette on the palette. I will say that this is a cruelty-free and vegan palette within their collection. Most of their products are both cruelty-free and vegan. I think the Warrior palette is not vegan, but most everything else in their collection is. It is super easy to store because it is rather thin for, you know, a 16-pound palette. It's also kind of small for a 16-pound palette, but it does lean on a larger palette side of the spectrum. And then it does have a really decent magnetic closure that's pretty nice to travel with. I have traveled with this palette in the past. Not that we're traveling right now, but there is a high potential that we will be traveling again in the future. This travels well because of the magnetic closure. I find that it's not sticky enough that it's difficult to get open one-handed, but I do find that it is sticky enough that it stays closed if something bumps along the edge of it. So there's that. It performs well with or without primer, as does all of Juvias Place palettes. I have not found any kind of inconsistencies with that fact. I think that it goes on beautifully. The pigmentation is there and it blends just as well with or without a primer. The primer isn't going to impact its performance, and the primer isn't going to impact its longevity. I find that these shadows stay on my eye, no creasing, no smudging, no budging, for a good 12 hours prior to any kind of fading, really. And honestly, I have to tell you, I didn't really notice much fading, period, with these shadows. They are beautiful shadows. With that said, the shimmers in here, I think, are the outperformers. I think the shimmers are beautiful. And my eye look really today has 2 mattes on it and the rest is shimmer. So I have got shimmer all the way onto my lid, and even this like little outer V section here is also shimmer. The shimmers in this palette are just phenomenal. And I have this one wonky eye, right? And it waters all the damn time, and I can't stop it. I have many of times said I think I'm allergic to eyeshadow because as soon as I put anything on my eye, it starts watering, and 9 times out of 10 it waters so poorly that this whole section of my eye look is gone within a couple of hours. These shadows didn't really dissipate with my watery eyes. And as a matter of fact, like today I put this eye look on and my eye is not watering. So I don't know what's going on today, but these don't bother my eyes as much as other palettes have in the past. This does have some pressed pigments on it. Again, couldn't find a whole lot of information on it, but I do know that pressed pigments, some of them are not safe for your eye. I don't have a problem with any of that. Typically that just means that they may cause irritation, they may cause some staining. These do cause staining. I have not seen any irritation, but again, pressed pigments doesn't scare me away from a palette. It's not a make or break for me. I also didn't see a whole hell of a lot of fallout with this palette, to be honest. I did see quite a bit today with this shade here, this green shade, which is that like outer V shade. I actually have it quite a bit into my eye look as well on the lid. I did see quite a bit of fallout with that guy, but the other shades, like, I didn't really see a whole lot of fallout with. I do have this dark blue on my eye look today too, and I did not see any fallout with that. I would say that this isn't super beginner friendly, and the reason why I would say it's not super beginner friendly is because there are only 6 mattes in here. There's only 6 mattes and there's 10 shimmers, and the mattes are not 100% consistent. And like I said, I do have one of the older palettes, but I did experience that as a newbie in the makeup game when I got this palette. So I don't think the formulation has changed at all. This shade here and this shade here are the only 2 like really dark mattes, but they're also the only 2 cool tone mattes. And they're kind of patchy. They go on super patchy. They don't blend super well. You have to work in baby steps with those 2 colors. And I think that for a lot of newbies that maybe aren't blending as well as they can be, you know, 5 years from now, this might be a super frustrating palette for them. These warmer tone mattes, so you have 4 actually warmer tone mattes, but none of them are super deep, so it's super hard to deepen up a warm toned eye look with the 4 mattes that you've got. I think that this palette really could have benefited from another dark matte versus say this orange and this orange brown, which look very similar on the eye. It could have used like a really deep brown matte shade, and it could have used another cool tone matte shade that was maybe a little lighter than these 2 really dark shades. I think that most of these blend super well, and most of these, so besides those 2, the rest of them blend super well. All of them perform really well and have amazing pigmentation, and all of them work well with each other when layered on top of each other, but also with other shadow formulas in my collection. I do know that I use some of my Sydney Grace shadows in conjunction with this palette because, like I said, I wanted to pull for a lighter cool tone matte and a deeper warm tone matte. So I did use some of my Sydney Grace shadows to help compensate for what I feel like this palette was missing. But with that said, I really do feel like this is a palette that could stand on its own for many people. And the reason I say that is because you do have the 2 deepening shades, right? You also have a great amount of warm tones in here. You also have a bone shade, which would work well for, you know, an inner corner highlight or a brow bone shade. As a matter of fact, I have it in my brow bone today. I also think that you have like this orange brown here that works really well as a transition tone, even for my skin tone, because you can sheer it out quite a bit. I think that the color story in this palette translates really well from pan to eye. I think for the most part, each one of these shades looks like it does in the pan on your eye look. Except for maybe this one. This one is like a red, but it actually translates to more of like a coral pink. So like a deep coral pink shade instead of a red shade. With that said too, these are super deep tones, and this one looks kind of like a black, but in person it's very much like a black grape tone. So I think that they could translate a little bit deeper, but that goes back to me saying I think that this could be frustrating for somebody who is new to makeup, doesn't necessarily know how to blend, or doesn't want to blend and wants to go straight in from color to, you know, pan to eye and have this show up this way. This one really needs to, and this one they really need to be packed on. They feel a little bit more grippy in the pan. They're a little bit more dry. I feel like they don't blend super, super easy. And I think that you'll see that with a couple of eye looks that I have in here using, well, one eye look using that deep purple. And today's look has this in it, but it's just like, I tried to blend it and it wasn't working for me. So I went over the top of the blend with this, and that's why I've got a shimmer shadow or a foiled metallic shadow in my outer V here and into my wing. I think also that this would be a great palette for that one and done for a lot of people because it's got a great variety, right? You can use this 100 days and probably never come up with the same eye look, as long as you're okay with using shimmers in your crease as well, or shimmers in your outer V as well as mattes. This only has a few mattes, so it could be like a stump for many people. It could go over like a brick. I say this in every single Juvias Place review that I do. Juvias Place is an indie brand. It started via Instagram, and it is a Black owned brand, but it's also a woman owned brand. So Black women owned indie brands are, you know, something that I know that many of us are really trying to support. Number one, indie brands, but also Black owned, more for that inclusive mindset and really trying to drive that nail home to other brands in our maybe even mainstream world that aren't as inclusive. So for those of you who really want to get more familiar with Black owned or women owned brands, this would be a great brand to do. And if you haven't tried Juvias Place, I implore you to do so. The pigmentation of their shadows are made to work on any skin tone, and they truly do. And you can see that in the pictures that they put up on their website. You can see that if you look up any Juvias Place palette on Pinterest, you can see different eye looks from different skin tones made with a Juvias Place palette just all over the place, and it just gives you all those warm and fuzzies about supporting the brand. What I also know is at one point in time Juvias Place was canceled. I can tell you I don't know why. I think a lot of it has to do with their customer service, but I will tell you, because I have ordered from Juvias Place before, their customer service isn't fantastic, but I don't think that it's any different from many other indie brand customer service websites, to be honest. I know that it's rough to have a product that you want to return to an indie brand. It's rough to, you know, have to deal with all the hoops and bells and whistles that you have to go through for, you know, broken product that comes to you or whatever that comes to you from an indie brand. And that is every indie brand. I know that I received a palette from Lunar Beauty not that long ago that had a shade that was shattered in it, and thank God there was enough left in it that I could repress it, because when I reached out to try and return the palette, I was flat out told that they don't take returns. I love Lunar Beauty as a brand. What I will tell you is I don't think that their customer service is any different or much worse from any other indie brand out there. I think that Juvias Place is an amazing brand. I think that they're a brand that I will continue to support. I have all kinds of things from them, ranging from complexion clear up to, you know, eyeshadows and highlighters and whatnot. And I do believe that they were my number one brand for if I could only choose one brand from the drugstore or affordable price range, they were the one brand I would choose. Let's do some swatches. There are 16 shades in here, so I'm going to try and be really quick and efficient about this. Sometimes that doesn't work out so hot for me, just saying. Okay, these are the first four. So we have Nubia, which is this guy here. This is a metallic yellow gold. You guys can see that is crazy, like gold bar gold. And then we have this shade here, which is Zakaya. This is a matte like terracotta orange or matte pumpkin, I think is what they have it listed as on their website. Then we have this one here, which is one of my favorites on the palette, and this is Oh Sun. It is a metallic, like shifty pink silver tone. I wouldn't say duochrome, but it is a pink that leans very silver. Maybe it is a duochrome, just not sure. And then we have this shade here, which is the matte bone shade in the palette that I think works really well as an inner corner or a brow bone shade, or for a really fair complected person, it could be a really nice transition tone as well. These are the second 4 in the palette. We have Zuba, which is a metallic gold toned pink. So you have your silver toned pink and your gold toned pink. Also a really beautiful shade. Then we have this one here, which is called Wanna. It is a matte, like orange brown. I think it's supposed to be more of a brown, but it's definitely more of an orange. And then we have this shade here, which is called Bronu. It is a metallic brown gold. I think it's very like bronzy, only leans more gold toned than most like bronzes do. So definitely not like an antique bronze, but I do think it's more like bronzy. And then this one here, which is the red in the palette, and I think that you will see it kind of comes out a little more coral. This is called Kogi, and it is a matte warm red orange. I think it's coral. So those are those shades there. I think that I have favorites in there. Warm tones are kind of my jam, honestly. I get along really well with reds and oranges and pinks and purples. Those 2 pinks in there, some of my favorite metallics in my collection, honestly. I just kind of love the kind of shifty nature of them, but not super shifty. I think that they are both so beautiful, and they played so well with any eye look I could put together in here. I imagine those would go really well with the deep dark purple in the palette. They would also go super well with even this dark green that I have all over my lid right now. I think that those would be amazing shades to partner with any color in this palette. I also think that Juvias Place has such a unique formula with their metallics and their shimmers, in that it could be a one shadow eye look super easily because their metallics and their shimmers buff out quite nicely. I don't think that that's true of a lot of shimmers. Okay, this is the first row of cool tones in the palette. Beautiful row here. This is probably one of my favorite rows in the palette, and it does have this beautiful first shade here, which is kind of like this duochrome purple, silver, blue shade. So pretty. This one is called Faso. I can't pronounce any of their shade names, so please don't come for me in the comments. I'm doing the best I can here. This one is called Aja, and it is the like deep dark green shade that's in my eye look today. It is a metallic like forest green. It's just so beautiful and so grungy and oh, so beautiful. And even though it's a metallic, works so well performing as a matte in an eye look. I think it's just so pretty. And then we have this one here, which is called Vai. It is a metallic like chrome. It's definitely a silver. But it almost has like this gray, so maybe like a gunmetal, metallic gunmetal. And then this shade here, which is in my eye look today, and this is called Yamoya. I don't know, guys, I'm so sorry. And there is a metallic like blue silver. I really think that one of these could have been in the palette and the other one could have been that, you know, mid-tone or light-toned matte cool tone shade that I was talking about the palette needing earlier. I definitely think that both of those weren't necessary in this palette. They do give off different effects, right? One of them is more gray tone, one of them is more like pastel-y blue tone, but I think that you could have gotten away with one or the other and you didn't necessarily need both. This is the last row in the palette, and like I said, these two are the only cool tone mattes in this palette, and they are very dark, as you can see. Again, I don't think that you needed to have both of them in the palette. They are also the grippiest of the shadows in this palette, so they're going to feel a little bit more like sandpaper to the touch. I guess it impacts how they behave because I did find their performance a little more patchy, a little more of a struggle to try and blend, but it doesn't impact the pigmentation, if that makes sense. They're just a little bit more dry. So the first one is this one here, which is called IPSY, and it is a matte like royal purple. You can see it's such a pretty shade, and it swatches so well. I wish it performed like this truly in an eye look. The next one I have is this, and it is called Yara. It is a metallic aqua, like minty green shade. It's so pretty. It looks really good with that dark blue that's in the palette next to it. It really pulls the blue from it when it's in with that one. Then we have this one, which is called Bouzo, and it is a metallic emerald shade. This one is packed into the center of my lid, kind of marrying that darker green and that light silver blue together. And then the last one is that one, and that is the shade Yahidi, I think it's called, and it is a blackened blue, so like a navy. I definitely think that they're beautiful shades. I definitely think that they have a place, but again, I think that there's a lot of redundancy with these shades here. I definitely don't think that both of these needed to be in the palette. I just think that they're too similar. I also don't think that this purple and this blue needed to be in the palette together. I think that we could have used a lighter tone blue maybe, or even a lighter toned purple maybe, and replacing one of those silvers with a medium to light toned, cool toned shadow would have behooved this palette. I mean, again, it's only got 6 mattes in it, and of those 6 mattes, 4 of them are warm tone mattes. You can use any color with any color that you want to, and I think that I could show you in my pictures that I do. I do what I want whenever I want. I had to get creative with this palette to get the tones that I really wanted, which is fine, But sometimes you just don't have that much time to do it. I also had to pull from other palettes or other single shadows, not palettes necessarily, but single shadows, to get what I thought this palette was lacking in matte tone. And I don't have a huge single shadow collection when it comes to mattes, honestly. I really loved this palette. I have no qualms with this palette, but I would say that if I had to choose between the Masquerade mini or the Magic mini, I would probably choose the Masquerade over this one. I just think that the color story in that one suits me better, and I think that the matte to shimmer ratio in that one suits me better. This one is a beautiful palette. I do love using it. It will stay in my collection. I do love Juvias Place shadows, and there are some standouts in here that I think are super unique to my collection, but it's probably not my favorite Juvias Place palette, even though it has a lot of versatility, and even though it has, I feel like, capacity within it to perform for day and nighttime looks, for a wearable look as well as a glam eye look. I think that even though it has those qualities amongst it, it's not my favorite for blendability, and I just think that since coming out with this palette, they've created better. I think the mattes in the palette could have been better. So with that said, let's pull another palette. Hopefully we don't get another Juvias Place palette. I mean, I do have a lot of I remember at one point in this going, God, we haven't pulled for any of my Juvias Place palettes. And then we pulled one. And then I think we ended up pulling another one a few weeks later, but then we didn't pull any for such a long time. So it doesn't really surprise me that we're pulling a lot of Juvias Place lately, because that's pretty much what I have left. Not only what I have left, but yeah, there's a lot of Juvias Place that we haven't went through. So I'm hoping that we don't get another Juvias Place this week. I'm hoping that we get something a little bit more different, maybe even something a little bit new, because I do have quite a few palettes that are new. For those of you who do not know, I do utilize to pull my palette this app here. It is called the Decide Now app. I did pull it from my Play Store. I do have a Samsung Note 9, therefore utilize the Android system, but you can pull one of these apps from every operating system out there. When we first started this, I did put all my palettes into this wheel. As we utilize them through Palette Roulette, or I declutter them, I do take them out of the wheel so that hopefully we're not picking the same palette twice. As I haul palettes in, I do put them into the wheel, and we just filter through. We just keep on going. As I said, this is video 116 in this palette roulette series, so I have reviewed 116 palettes. There is a good chance that if you are on the search for a palette review, I have reviewed it. Unless it's newer. Honestly, the new ones don't filter into. I need to start like really reviewing my newer palettes too. I think that that is definitely an area of my channel that is a miss. But this is this is the system. So we're going to spin it. To spin it, we just press that blue button. So I'm going to spin it right now and we're going to pick a new palette. I'm so excited. I got the Lunar Beauty Strawberry Dreams palette. All you can see is S there, but it is the Strawberry Dreams palette. So I'm going to go pick that up and I will be right back. I think this is the perfect palette because we have Valentine's Day coming up real soon. And this is what this palette looks like. Look at how pretty this is, first and foremost. So this is the sister palette to the, well, mother, sister, I don't know how it works out, but this is a sister palette to the Eternal Eclipse one that I just did, which came out for holiday 2020. This one came out well before that, and it is so pretty. It's so pretty and warm toned and beautiful, and I cannot wait to use these on my eyes. I get along so much better with warm tone shadows. So I mean, it does have a couple pops of cool up there, but I think this is going to be the most amazing week, and I cannot wait to come back to you and share with you my thoughts about this palette. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you are enjoying this series, and if you have used this palette, I would love to know, the Juvias Place Magic Mini, I would love to know down in the comments section. Please share your thoughts with us down there. If you've used the Lunar Beauty Strawberry Dreams palette, I would also love to know your thoughts down there. With that said, you guys, thank you so much for coming and joining me today. I do appreciate you all for being here so very much. I know that you're making a choice to watch my videos, and that warms my heart so much. I hope that you enjoyed the video so much that you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here. I also hope that you liked it or me enough that you're considering subscribing before you go. And if you do that, please don't forget to hit that notification bell before you leave so that you're notified every single time I upload a video. I upload multiple times a week, and I would hate for you to miss anything, and that notification bell is going to assure that you don't miss anything or miss very little. It's going to make sure I show up in your feed, and that's what we want today. I hope that you all and yours are staying safe and staying well and wearing your mask when you're out in public. At least for a few more months, we have to just continue to keep ourselves safe, if for no other reason. And I hope that you all are loving each other, but loving each other from afar. Until next time, bye everyone.